All right, boys and girls, and welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network, and another great episode for you today. I know any of the latest videos you guys seen me doing on podcasts, you haven't heard me crack open a beer for different reasons. The last show that you heard, if you heard my last show, was with Silas Garrett. He won the tournament in Fayette here in Texas, Southeast Texas Kayak Bass League. And I'm actually, the day that I recorded that, I'm recording this one as well. So if you heard my intro on that one, you know I got COVID and I'm dealing with that, so I can't really crack open, drink a beer right now. So I'm doing two recordings today, taking advantage of the fact that I'm going to be stuck at home for at least a few more days and not be able to move. Starting to get cabin fever here. But anyways, great show for you today. I got Shane LemMon from Bass Fishing Thumbs. He is another great California angler. I don't get a lot of California anglers on my podcast, so I'm super excited to bring him on. He has the newest segment on the Paddle and Fin network, and I think it comes out every other Thursdays in the afternoons. And again, it's Bass Fishing Thumbs. We're going to be talking about his podcast. He's also an accomplished and a great tournament angler. And we're going to be talking about some of the trails that are happening in California. I know when we think about tournament anglers as far as kayak fishing, not a lot of big names come up when we're talking about Cali kids. I know the biggest name probably Greg Blanchard. And that's a lot of it has to do with obviously his social media and his YouTube videos. But there is a lot of great anglers out there, and it's an interesting territory to fish. Very different from what we have either in the Midwest, the South, or Northeast. Obviously, with California, there's a lot of like lakes that deal with delta and tidal waves. So it'd be interesting to talk to him about it. So anyways, we're going to go to a quick commercial before we go into that. Quick thank you to my sponsor, Douglas Rods. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup, LRS rods, X-Matrix rods, and if you're into fly fishing, they have award fishing fly fishing rods. So go check them out. We'll go to a quick commercial, and then we got Shane LemMon. Be right back. Mr. Shane LemMon, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Nah, man, it's my honor to have you on the show. Welcome to the Paddle and Fin. We haven't actually talked since you got to Paddle and Fin, so kind of meeting you for the first time, at least on our, virtually. So honor to have you, man.
It's super fun being a part of the Paddle and Fin family now. Our group chats never go quiet, and it's fun to just be a part of you guys. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you tonight. And again, thanks for having me. Always love to talk about fishing.
Always. If we can't do fishing, the next best thing is to talk about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how you liking the Paddle and Fin family? You like all the drama we go through in our group chat?
No, I love it, man. It keeps me entertained throughout the day, and a lot of good conversations in there. And I feel like we have a lot of great hosts, different variety of different ideas and different thoughts, and I think it just makes for a great network. And again, like I'm honored to be a part of it. When I reached out to Brad Hicks and kind of told him my idea about coming on and joining you guys, it all just kind of worked out. Brian Schiller, he's just an awesome dude, and he's helped me a lot with my show, and it's just gave me a good platform to kind of build off of and kind of add to my social media.
Brian Schiller, I mean, can't say enough about great things about Brian Schiller and what he does for the podcast community and fishing community. And I'm glad that he's actually getting more involved now in training. Training in kayak fishing tournaments. I know he kind of took a sabbatical last year, but this year looks like he's gonna get more and more back into kayak fishing tournaments. Like to see me on the water as well. But yeah, man, welcome. Sure. Like we said, welcome to the Paddle and Fin family. Been wanting to get you on the show for a while now, but I know the schedules haven't worked out, especially with the time difference. But for those of you that don't know you, Shane, and don't know about your podcast, so tell us first of all a little bit about you. What do you do other than fishing, kayak fishing? How you got into kayak fishing, and eventually how you got into doing your podcast?
Yeah, so my name's Shane LemMon. I'm 31 years old. Got a beautiful wife and a little 3-year-old boy who loves fishing. just as much as I do, maybe more. And I do construction for my day job. I'm a foreman for. We basically move dirt. We're like a truck hauling business that moves a lot of dirt, and that's kind of what we do. And I really enjoy it. I get to operate tractors and manage a crew, and really thankful for that and enjoy it a lot. It kind of keeps me outdoors. It's part of my lifestyle, just being outdoors and being in, working in the dirt and then heading to the lake on the weekends and fishing. Uh, Other than that, I just, I kind of fell in love with kayak fishing maybe like 3.5 years ago now, almost 4. Started off in a float tube for about 9 years. At the beginning of that 9 years, again, float tube fishing was just something that got me off the bank and I was able to cover a little bit more water than being on the bank. Like most guys start on the bank, and float tubing was a passion of mine. I obviously did it for 9 years. I never got a bass boat. And then I saw a bona fide kind of commercial, I guess you can call it, when they first came out. And I saw the guy standing up and fishing out of it, and it just caught my attention, drew me in, and I just knew I just had to have that kayak. Uh, Started an Instagram account maybe about 6 years ago, and Bass Thumbs Fishing is the name of the Instagram, and kind of started as a reshare page. Shared a lot of people's thumbs that were ripped up after fishing. They would send me pictures of their thumbs, and I would literally like post that, and it was just something that related to a lot of bass fishermen. When we rip our thumbs up out there on the water, we know that we had a good day out there, and it kind of happens to everyone if you bass fish. So it related to a lot of people. It grew kind of naturally and organically on its own, and because of that, I was able to reach out to companies and use my social media presence to build relationships with companies and promote their product. And it's just really helped me, and it's really propelled me just in my own brand and just me as an angler. It's given me a lot of opportunities. And now, a part of the Bonafide factory team. I'm on the Motor Guide Pro team. And I'm just really thankful, man. It's just been a crazy journey from the bank to the float tube to the kayak scene. And I've just absolutely fell in love with kayak fishing. Got a podcast, started it with my buddy Alex. Our goal behind the podcast originally was to just bring a little bit of light out to the West Coast. Like Armando talked about in the beginning of the show, the light really doesn't really venture into the West Coast for some reason. And I kind of saw an opportunity to highlight a lot of our anglers out here because we have a lot of good anglers. And me and my buddy Alex Cox, who's a hammer out here from California, me and him started our podcast, got a lot of good feedback, ran with it. And now we're kind of coming to today, I guess, part of Paddlefin now, which is a nationwide podcast network. So it kind of all just fell into place, and I'm really enjoying the process for sure.
Definitely, man. And like you mentioned, it's something important to see the growth of the kayak fishing community, that we be inclusive on everyone, that wants to, grow the sport in their area, whether it's California, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming. I know there's a lot of states right now that 5 years ago you wouldn't think of hosting a tournament for bass fishing, but now they are. And I think that's very important, to nurture that and help other communities that may not be synonymous with kayak fishing or kayak bass fishing in this case, to develop their talent and grow the sport. Because I think as every community gets more and more involved in this, then the sport gets better. The products are going to be better. Um, Prices, for tournaments, for those people that enjoy tournaments, prices are going to grow. It just benefits everybody, whether you just do it for your fun, or you're a tournament angler. The growth of the sport helps out everyone. And I know, like we mentioned, geographically, it really is hard for anybody in California to travel to, like the mecca of bass fishing, which is pretty much, somewhere between like Texas and Alabama and all those states in between, with a few exceptions. And
Yeah.
therefore, it's different. It's very hard for even from Tennessee to Alabama to travel to California
Yeah.
to take part in those tournaments. How have you seen the growth of kayak fishing or kayak bass fishing in California evolved since you've started this?
I mean, man, I feel like it's came a long ways. I know that there was a lot of guys doing it a couple years prior to me getting my foot in it. And once I got into it, I don't know what it was, but it bothered me a little bit that a lot of guys from California weren't maybe taking the advantage of traveling to, fish against you guys, I guess you could say, like out there in the Midwest
Mm.
and the East Coast. And it sparked something in me. I was really passionate about, you know, representing and trying to encourage guys to get out of California and take what we've gained here as far as our angling goes and take it to compete against the guys that are getting a lot of attention. And I feel like ever since um me and Alex Cox and Anthony Garcia and just a few of these guys out here, John Myers, guys, Pu Yang, guys that have taken the initiative to not just sit back and cry and say, "Oh, these guys, none of these trails come out here anymore." Um, you know, Instead of sitting back and just complaining about it, I was encouraging guys. We got to go out there and fish. We got to figure it out. We got to plan for it, and we got to go out there and compete against them and see what we can do. And me and my buddy Alex and Anthony Garcia, we went to the KBF National Championship at Lake Gunnersville, and Alex Cox, he ended up taking fifth place from California, which was a really big accomplishment for our West Coast anglers out here to go out there and represent us like that. I didn't fish in the national championship, but I fished in the Challenge Series championship because it was my first year in KBF, and I didn't get a chance to qualify for the national championship. But I ended up taking 13th, and it really kind of encouraged my confidence. And it was just a cool moment for us to kind of go out there and represent California, and not just sit back and say, you know what, like complain about it. Like I love going out and fishing out there. In Alabama, we were at Gunnersville. It was just a dream come true for me to go fish. And I encourage anyone listening that's from the West Coast, whether it's in Arizona or Utah or California, we just can't sit back and just expect everything to come to us. If it's not going to come to us for this year, then we got to go out and fish what we can to if we want to make some sort of recognition for us, if we want to get some sort of recognition for ourselves.
And that's very important also. And then I commend you for what you're doing, and trying to build something that's not just for you, but for the whole state of California to get involved and hopefully get more trails to come into the West Coast, go to the West Coast, and bring tournaments. I know Hobie did it. Um, a couple of years ago. I don't think it was last year. To me, everything's a blur since COVID started. I don't know
Yeah,
when
yeah.
2020 ended and 2021 it started
Yeah.
and ended, honestly. So if anybody that's listening, if I'm getting the dates wrong, just apologize. But let's just say in the last couple of years, we haven't seen those trails, and looks like on 2022, no big name tournaments like that, meaning Bass Nation and Hobie BOS are going to be taking part in California. Now I know I recorded an episode with Dan Perry when there was, I think it was either the Hobie BOS, I think it was the Hobie BOS, um, and I know that kind of like the attendance was a little bit disappointing. So I get the Hobie BOS and Bass Nation saying, "Hey man, if guys don't show up, then it's not really worth it for us to go out there, especially when like I think Hobie BOS like 5 or 6, 7 guys were like not even from the state of California."
Yeah.
Um, what do you think needs to happen? Not to put blame on anybody, not to say, oh, it's the fault of the anglers, oh, it's the fault of the organizations not doing a good job. Let's take the blaming side out of it. What do you think needs to happen for both the local anglers and the big name organization, again, Bass Nation and Hobie BOS, to make this work so it'll be attractive and profitable for them to go to California? And what do you think needs to, from each side,
Yeah.
not just from one side?
Well, the first thing I'm gonna just come out and say is we have to show up to these national events when they come, and that's just the bottom line. I mean, we can sit and kick and scream all we want. There were a couple events that were pretty close to other things going on, but like for an example, when Bass Nation came out here as a part of their Open Series, like it was their first year, and they went to Clear Lake, not Nation, not like a Nation, like actual Bass. They went to Clear Lake their first year, and it was the weekend after uh, the KBF Trail, and then it was also the KBF Trail in August. Also has a local trail that has their championship the same day. It's like this mecca, weekend of kayak bass fishing in California, and it happened every year prior to that. It was on that weekend before Bass put their tournament at Clear Lake. So you're making guys choose 2 weekends in a row, and kayak anglers, besides maybe a small 5%, don't do this for a living, don't even have the ability to make everything, like a lot of anglers can. So you got to give them they gave them the ability to choose. I chose not to go to the KBF because I felt like the importance was to show up and fish if I had to pick one weekend, which I had to because of my life circumstance. And I went up and fished the Bass Nation event. But there was only 61 or 60, I think 61 guys that showed up to that event. And that's just, not going to cut it. And I was thankful for that event because I took 5th place and I had a great time and I qualified for the championship and I went to the championship. But and that's when Russ Snyder's came out and taught us all a lesson that he can still whoop our butts in California as well.
Or anywhere for that
matter,
right?
Yeah. That's the year he was just on an absolute tear.
Yes.
And anyways, but to answer your question, I just feel like we have to show up. We have to show up to the events. We have to put up the triple digits or close to it in order for these, bigger organizations to come back, because they're not a local trail. They're a business and they got to make money. And that's just the bottom line. So at the end of the day, I feel like to answer your question is A, we got to show up, and B, for the local or for the bigger events. I mean, to schedule a KBF, for Bass Nation to schedule an event 1 week after the KBF, I just wish that how about this? I wish between Hobie BOS, KBF, and Bass, I wish they would all kind of look at their schedules and just try their best to at least put like 2 weeks or 3 weeks in between them if they can. I just feel like they could put a little bit better of an effort into the planning of the big national trails. And again, they're probably all thinking like, well, they're kind of all competition, so we don't really care. But at the end of the day, the overall kayak market, honestly, in the whole country is a fairly kind of small market. Like there's still like a small percentage of actual kayak anglers that actually want to compete at this high of a level. I mean, we're probably talking like 300-400, guys across the country, maybe a little bit more. That's just a number I'm throwing out. But, to spread that out across the country and then to have these national trails be 1 week apart from each other in completely different ends of the country or miles and miles away, I mean, it's just not going to work. And then they're all going to be upset because all their numbers are going to be low. So that's just one thing that I wish that they would, pay a little bit more attention to. But at the end of the day, we have to show up to the events. So
yeah, and
especially out here in California.
Yeah, and that's understandable. Like I'm right now with you just mentioned that, like I had to make a decision because Bass Nation is gonna have Lake Fork and then Hobie BOS is gonna have Toledo. I was like, well, I can't, that's the other thing. It's $250 each. That's $500 in 2 weekends.
Just entry fees.
Just entry fees. So it's kind of pressure that you need to make, get on the money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely is. I don't know the conversations that go between, each organizations. I know I can say this because everybody knows this. Bass Nation does bring their schedules a lot later than everybody else. So, I mean, there's that. I don't want to go here and point fingers at Bass Nation, but if you're the one that's bringing, the trails, a few months later than everybody else, then that's kind of on you to make the adjustments too.
I mean,
But again,
one thing I want to say too, it's like, it is their third year. I kind of hope that they would have done, as far as bass goes. I kind of hope they would have done a little bit better as far as their scheduling goes, like not having 2 days and 1 day. But
yeah,
at least they're tapping into 2 days, because before they didn't have any 2 days. So I mean, they're kind of listening. So I hope for next year, just to stay positive on it and not get too deep down that rabbit hole for this year, just to stay positive on it and just, hope that they hear us and hear the feedback that they got this year, because, there was a lot of a good positive. I feel like it was not negative. I feel like it was good, constructive criticism. And I hope that they hear it. And I hope that next year they're able to, expand their events throughout the nation a little bit better, and B, have 2 day events throughout their whole entire year.
yeah, no, and I agree with it. And again, we're not here to hamper on harp on anybody here, much less Bass Nation. And I think the overall sentiment is we're all happy in the kayak fishing community that Bass Nation's decided to take part in this.
Yeah, 100%. It's a
And
childhood
both,
dream of mine to just
yes,
have a
same here.
possibility to, because I was in the stadium when Mark Pendergraph. I actually just had him on my show. That's the show I
Yeah,
recorded right before this. I had Mark
oh,
on.
nice.
But I mean, one thing I was telling him is like, dude, it's a childhood dream to be there. I was so glad that I was able to even experience it in Texas this year, even though I didn't get on the stage. But now it's my goal as a kayak angler, no matter what, is to hoist that trophy and be a
Yeah,
kayak, a Bass Nation Kayak Series champion. That's my main goal. So
yeah. And that's a good point. We were talking that we had a long discussion that on our host thread about it. Which one would you rather win? And there's different aspects. You can't deny the the lure that is walking down that carpet and being on the top 10 and hoisting that
oh yeah,
trophy. You can't
yeah.
substitute that. And I think that's every kayak angler wants that. Wants to win the Bass Nation. It comes down, I think, from
Honestly,
Bass
Armando,
Nation.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
come out and say this too.
Uh,
How about this? I don't even care about the payout. I don't care what the payouts are. I care about hoisting that trophy and being a bass champion.
that's an
That's just
interesting
my
point.
own point. That's just my
No,
own
and that's
point.
an interesting point because it like yourself, and I said it on my podcast before. There's times where, well, not there's times I grew up, you know, I would, as soon as my dad got cable TV, my mom said, and I barely remember this, but she would say Sunday mornings, she would wake up and I'd be sitting on the floor in front of the TV with my tackle box and my rods, watching bass fishing shows or or the Bassmasters on TV. I just loved it.
Yep.
We, this is in Puerto Rico where we really didn't have bass fishing at all. Like that's not even that is a thing now, but it wasn't back then. Like nobody did bass fishing in Puerto Rico back then. At least when I was 10 years old or 5 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I personally like it. And again, kind of moving on to other subjects, not to dwell on this. I just think Bass Nation needs to find an identity and figure out what they want to do and have somebody that's kayak tournament director proven with experience to run it. But we'll see. I think we need to give it time. And I think once it's figured out, I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to take the sport to another level. That's what we all want. Nobody here wants to hear about any boycotting bass, hobie, or anything. There's plenty of room for everybody to grow. And I think we need to support everything that we can, whether we agree with what's going on right now. We just got to let it work itself out, and it'll eventually get to where it needs to get. And we know we're at the infancy level of this sport. It's crazy to think how much this sport has grown, especially with COVID. COVID shut down everything for like 2 years, 1.5 year, for a lot of things. But then all of a sudden, kayak fishing kind of blew up because a lot of people were like, okay, we don't travel that much. Maybe they can't afford to take out their boat because of gas prices and not being able to work, whatever. So a lot of people I remember were just like, you go to a kayak shop, man, it was hard to get a kayak. They were just selling out. My Outback
Oh
took
yeah.
like 3 months because they were on back order for 3 months.
Yep.
So it grew where everything else was getting shut down. Kayak fishing grew, not just
Yeah.
kayak bass fishing, but kayak fishing. The sport of kayak, just grew.
Yeah.
And now to think of the room it has, the ceiling that we have for this to grow is, I mean, the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like I was saying earlier, I just hope, when opportunities come up for us to fish big events out in especially the West Coast, I just hope we fish them and that our guys show up, because the interesting part about this as well as a part of this conversation, we had a California Bass Nation event last
Hmm.
year. It was in May, and it was at Clear Lake, and we had 100. It was 142 guys show up. So we have the anglers. It really depends on um like the schedule, because there was nothing else going on around that time, and
Hmm.
all of us were able to show up and fish it. And my buddy Alex actually won that tournament, and he won like $15,000, and it was just insane. But we put on a great, California Bass Nation, Tim Arthur, he put on a great event. So there's opportunities for us out here still. Kind of going. So there's no Bass Open event, if you want to call it that, but we have the Bass Nation Series, California Bass Nation Series. They're going to be, I think, 3 or 4 events with a championship at the end, and then we're going to send our 20% to the championship, for 2023, which is really cool. And then, there's no Hobie event, but actually the ABA Kayak Series um, has Hobie as their title sponsor, and they've fully came on board with us. They're giving away 2 PA 14 180s.
Wow.
They fully sponsored the event, and they're going to be 2-day events up and down California. We have a great schedule. There's 3 events kind of locally or kind of in SoCal, and there's also 3 events in NorCal, and $250 buy-ins. Great payouts. Like I said, 2-day events, and with a championship at the end. We're going to be The AOI is going to be winning like a fully rigged out PA. It's very similar to the BOS series.
Hmm.
We kind of structured it very similar to it. The one thing about our series is that we're going to allow motors, so we can fish with motors. But it's gonna be a fun new series coming out here to California, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And that's going to be the first year, the
It's
ABA with the Hobie sponsor.
it's gonna be the second year, but the first
Okay.
year doing it on this kind of a scale. Because last
Okay.
year it was only based in Southern California, and we had a 50 angler cap. It was $150 buy-in, 50 angler cap. We filled up 3 of them. The other 3, we hit about 45, 40. So we had a good year. It's just this year to continue with Hobie. Hobie wanted us to kind of push it a little bit, and that's why we kind of went up and down California this year. And we went to 2-day events and the bigger buy-in. Kind of it's really close to a BOS series, other than just the fact that it's located only in California. We're drawing a lot of guys from Utah and or no Nevada and Arizona as well. Like Bryce Gibbs is going to come fish our events. Some Nevada guys. So it's really exciting, man. I'm really stoked to kind of see what's happening. So just because the official, I guess, national circuits aren't coming out here, we've kind of um taken a little bit of initiative
Hmm.
and still provided opportunities for anglers to compete at a really high level, and then also qualify for the Bass Masters Championship. So we have a way to get in, which is good. And the cool thing, one thing I want to say too, because a lot of times Bass Nation tournaments, depending on the state, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of get looked at a little bit lower than, I guess you can say, just because of the turnouts and the ability for guys to qualify at a more, I guess, like a lower turnout kind of thing. But for our Bass Nation event, I mean, it's going to be tough to get in, man. I mean, we're going to have to qualify. We're going to fish, I think, 3 or 4 events. I got to look, but we're gonna have to fish 3 or 4 and then qualify for a championship, and then from the championship, the top 20% go to the actual, the Bassmaster Classic, I guess you can call
Mm.
it. So it's a cool, tough way to get in, which I really like. I'm a huge fan of a tougher championship to qualify for. I think I
Yeah.
think it I think it feels really good as an angler to qualify for something that's that's fairly tough to get into, like the BOSTOC. I think it's they do a I mean, I've never fished an event of theirs, but just seeing the way that they run the event, seeing the way they market the event, seeing the way that they, you know, they just do a phenomenal job with their events. I really believe that. That's why I kind of took a lot of what they do, with our TD carry peeler and applied that to our series, and I'm really looking forward to it. So it's some exciting things going on.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, props to AJ McWhorter for that, because he really does, and that's going back to what he's saying, that's a proven tournament angler who's directing the trail. He knows, and if people forget, AJ McWhorter is a hammer. I mean, before he started doing this, like he was ranked right up there with everybody else, so he knows what he's talking about, and
Yeah,
he has that mentality of like kayak anglers first. Um, and it really brings out that what we're saying, that identity, like this is what we are. We're going to be kayak angler first, and we have to understand, though, we can't, I think, and that's something I try to hold myself back from doing, because I know I do it way too often, even to a fault, is we can't compare what Hobie BOS um is bringing to what Bass Nation or Bassmaster is bringing, because it's two different complex. One is a brand of that sells kayak. One is an organization that builds tournaments. So there's difference. There are different agendas for each one, and each one require a different take home. And that's something that even myself I have to hold back my when I try to give constructive observation or criticism, for that matters, because at the end of the day, we all, like, you have a podcast, I have a podcast. We're not gonna go the route where we're gonna trash talk anybody, badmouth, or you know, screw somebody with some organization or anybody individual, their character. But we do have to give our opinions on what think it's right and what think it's wrong, what things could work, and also talk about what things are doing great, and build on that. And that's
yeah,
really what the podcast is. I think as a podcaster, we try to hold ourselves accountable to what we says, but we also have to understand that our audience, when you have an audience, they want to know what you think and they want to know your thoughts on it. The way we express those thoughts and those opinions, that's what we always have to be careful not to enter into that, like clickbait kind of thing, or kind of like where people, when what is said, we can talk about what can be better and not concentrate on, like, oh, look what he said, or look what she said, or
yeah,
I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but basically that the conversation, because some uh tends to be more constructive versus more of a clickbait of a word of words and a word of insults, like
yeah,
who gave out the best bird. That's not what it's about. We're
yeah.
doing that, then we're not really building the um we're not building the community, and that's the
Absolutely,
most
yeah.
important thing. What are
So,
your personal goals for? And I know, I apologize, you were about to say something, but let me ask you
no,
this
go
real
ahead.
quick. What is your personal goals right now for your podcast and for you know, your career as a tournament angler,
Uh,
2022?
yeah, I mean, the goal for the podcast is going to continue to stay the same throughout its lifespan. It's going to be just to highlight the West Coast anglers, give them a platform to share, their tournament victories, and kind of just be like, I guess my goal for it is to kind of be like the podcast that a lot of West Coast guys want to be on.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been, we've done mostly tournament winners from the West Coast. We cover some of the bigger clubs. We also cover all the main series, and then we've also had a couple bass boat, pro anglers from the West Coast. We had Todd Klein,
Yep.
we had Matty Wong on recently,
That was a great
and
show, 91, by the way.
yeah, thanks, man. I mean, he's super cool guy, and I kind of want to still be a little versatile, so not just everything, just kayak fishing like all the time, but definitely with a majority of the show will be based off of West Coast kayak angling, but to also kind of venture out, and like I just had Mark Pendergraph on. I felt like it was an important one to have for my show, just because he won the Bass Nation Championship, so which is something that a lot of us guys on the West Coast want to strive to do. So it's cool to kind of have his story for a lot of our guys to hear, how his whole thing unraveled and everything. So also, just to have my own thing out here on the West Coast and have fun and record and talk about kayak fishing. So that's my goal, is to just kind of highlight all that. And then
Awesome. And
go ahead.
no. And I was just about to say,
Yeah.
I think you were just about to say what you would
Yeah.
expect on tournament.
So as far as my tournament angling goes this year, I am a family man. Like I said in the beginning, I got a wife and I got a 3-year-old, and we kind of got a little plan to maybe start and have another kid soon. So
Oh, congratulations.
I don't want to make too many like over promises on like what I'm gonna do on a national scale. Just based off of my own life circumstance and being a family man, which will always be first. But one thing that I have committed to this year is fishing the ABA kayak series. Doing that, I helped them with their social media and their marketing, and kind of have helped last year as well. So definitely want to try to promote that and be a part of that, and try to win that series. And then as far as the other national circuits go, and some things going on in California, we got a great local club down here in San Diego, SoCal Kayak Anglers. Definitely try to, if I can make a Saturday and go fish a local derby, a grassroots kind of deal, I would, definitely try to hop into that. But also fish the California Bass Nation Series. And my whole goal, man, is just to make it back on that stage, or make it back to that opportunity to be on the stage. So if I can qualify through the nations, I qualify through the nations. Kind of talking with Gene a little bit. I'm fortunate enough to know Gene pretty well. If he's able to make it to a bass event, I might fly out there and use one of his extra kayaks and fish a nation event. Because, like I said, I want to try to compete in that. And other than that, dude, I mean, that's pretty much like my season. I am qualified for the Kbf National Championship. It is at where is it at this year? Kentucky Lake. So
Lake, yeah.
if I can make it, I'm gonna try to go, because it's just, I would love to fish Kentucky Lake and have a shot to win that. Because like I said, last time I was there, I was only in the Trail Series or the Challenge Series Championship. So it'd just be cool just to fish a national championship, just to say I fished one, and give it a shot.
Hey, I mean, who knows? Maybe you'll win and get what, $50,000-$60,000.
Yeah,
That'd be nice, right?
Yeah, Kentucky Lake too. Like, I mean, I know that there's always a good crankbait bite. I know the chatterbait works pretty well there, and I don't know.
Chatterbait's pretty good
anywhere, yeah,
anywhere.
But it's a positive note for us, because out here, unless you're at Clear Lake or the Delta, I mean, it's always fun to catch them on a chatterbait. And when I can go out there when I went out to Gunnersville and went out to Possum Kingdom for the Bass Championship, I was throwing chatterbait, and it's just, I know you guys are kind of spoiled out there where you guys are all from, but to catch them on a chatterbait is something that I love to do, because I don't really come by it too much out here in SoCal, because we're mostly a finesse kind of jig, just a little bit of a different style, just because of our reservoirs out here. So unless you go to the Clear Lake or Delta, Clear Lake is the best fishery in the whole world, period.
Oh,
you can catch them on.
That's mock talk here in Texas, buddy.
Dude,
I don't know where this is going right now.
Dude, Clear Lake is okay. I kind of went out a little bit on a stretch on that, but Clear Lake is a phenomenal, definitely top 3 in the country for sure.
That's I'll give you that. I was about to say, you said the best ones. Like I think OHIV, Lake Fork, and Possum Kingdom has something to say about that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clear Lake. I'm not from California, and I've heard of Clear Lake for so long.
You got to come out. You got to come out one time, man.
Yeah, definitely. Do I have to drive my trailer over there with a kayak, or you have a kayak trailer?
Hey man, I did 24 hours to get to Possum Kingdom, so you can you can handle it.
I can handle it. All right, I'll see about that one.
I drove 24 hours in one day.
How hard is to? I've always wanted to ask this, and I think I had Yang on the time that I did that the reel down with Dan Perry. I think he definitely was in the top 3. I think he got.
Pui Yang?
I think he won. Pui Yang. I think he got.
Yeah.
But so it was at the Delta, and I noticed that a lot of the trails were going to be fishing at the Delta, and I've always wondered if that kind of put off some of the more Midwest and Southern guys from going, because I know fishing on the Delta, like there's places where you can say, okay, there's lakes that you can say this is really home court advantage. Like fishing in Florida, that's home court advantage. Because fishing in Florida is like very different from fishing anywhere. Fishing on a delta to me is like, yeah, man, if I'm gonna, you know, drive 24 hours to go to a lake, plus the tournament fees, plus the Airbnbs, hotel, foods, everything. Now I'm gonna fish a lake that's really, that's really gonna be affected by tidals. Something that most anglers here in that area never even have to encounter. I would think they would be like, nah, I'm double thinking if I really want to go over there and get embarrassed. How hard or how different is it to fish the delta, for example, that's prone to tidal changes, more than it is to fish any other lake?
So the first thing that I would say to someone if they are nervous about fishing the Delta, there's a gentleman by the name of Greg Blanchard that fishes it every single day. Just go on his YouTube and you'll find out what's going on.
That's true. But I mean, it's one
No,
thing to
but
watch Greg
no, I
Blanchard. The
know.
other thing is to fish it, though.
No, I know. Okay, so I, being from California, this might come to a shock to some of you and even you. I've only been there one time for a 4-day period. Okay,
That is a shock, yeah.
so I went there and went with my buddy Brad. Um, it was my first time on the Delta. Got a couple areas from Blanchard, got a couple areas from a couple other guys, and we hit 4 different areas on the Delta. The first 3 days, I struggled to catch a limit. I didn't even catch a limit any of the whole 3 days. I was punching, I was doing everything that I researched about, and I was totally confused about the tides and all that stuff. It just overwhelmed me. Like, and and it's just a massive, massive body of water,
Yeah.
especially on a kayak. I mean, it is like it eats you alive. But on the 4th day, I was able to catch like 15 fish. And I caught some good fish, and I kind of figured out an area that I really like. And I kind of figured out the tide thing a little bit. When it's a low tide, when it's a low tide, you want to just kind of step outside the grass line a little bit because they're sitting right outside the grass. When it's a high tide, they're probably closer to the bank because the water level's up. So it just took a
Yeah.
little bit of time to kind of figure it out. But I can see why Greg fishes it so much because, and I don't really know honestly, and Greg can actually say this too. It changes literally like by the hour, and the
Yeah.
fish are constantly changing and moving and setting up different. And so there's really not a home court advantage there. I mean, there kind of is, but it's still like a huge mystery. And when you hear a lot of pros talk about the Delta, a lot of people that live on the Delta, you kind of hear the same thing, dude. Like, you just never know. Like, one day you're going to catch 28, 30 pounds. The next day you're going to catch 2 fish or 1 fish. And so it's definitely a very, very like heaven-like place to fish. The scenery, just being there, you could just feel like any cast you can catch like a 10-pounder. But it's a tough one, but honestly, like, as a bass fisherman, I love the challenge. I love I love tournaments that are a little bit tougher. I love the bite being a little bit tough just because it makes it feel like so much more of an accomplishment when you do put together a limit, or when when you put together a good day, you feel like you earned it. When you go to these tournaments and you see like 90 inches is like 25th place. It's like, dude, are you serious? Like, 90 inches is freaking like an epic day,
Hmm.
but everyone had an epic day and it just doesn't feel the same, compared to
Yeah.
catching like 84 inches on a tough fishery, and you put together a limit and you won the event with 84 inches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the challenge, and the Delta is just a really fun place to fish for sure.
Definitely, I can see how it'd be fun. And again, it's so much different. I think you touched on something that I think every kayak angler, bass fisherman, will relate, and we love mystery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, how often do we get skunked or not get a limit? we talk about, I compare it to a baseball player. The best baseball player is going to fish, it's going to hit 300 plus. Well, that means out of uh,
Yeah.
1,000 at bats, he's going to fail 700 times.
Yeah.
And that bass fishing is the same thing, but we still love it. We still go out there and do it. And so I totally get the what you're saying, and I think everybody can relate to that. We, as bass fishermen and kayak angler, we love misery for some reason. We have to, otherwise why we do it, why we put ourselves through this all the time, considering how much we spend on it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's literally like for me, that's like the best part about bass fishing. It's always changing. There's always a challenge. There's just always something going on. You have to stay ahead of it. You have to think ahead. You have to make good decisions. You have to make sure all your knots are tied. You have to make sure everything's dialed in, because one small mishap, one
Yep.
small mistake, and your whole day's ruined. Like your whole day, not ruined, but you can miss out on an opportunity to catch a good bag. And I mean, everything has to go perfect for you to win one of these events. And no matter what, even if it's a local trail or a national trail, it's tough to win a tournament. And for guys that do consistently, hats off to you. And for guys that are continuing to grind, just keep grinding and your day will come. And, just keep learning and growing and just keep getting better. And time on the water is everything.
No, it's not. If it was easy, everybody would do it. The hard part is what makes it great.
If you want
Um,
easy, go on the shore, put a bobber out there and go fish for
yeah,
trout and crack open a beer and don't care if you get bit.
pretty much. So we've got you for like what 45 minutes now. Before I let you go, kind of wanted to do, like I often do, a session of rapid questions, so my fans, audience can get to know Shane LemMon a little bit more.
Let's do it.
Promise you, Shane doesn't know the questions unless you've heard my podcast before.
I've heard a few.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. If you couldn't fish for bass, what would you fish for?
Ooh, trout.
Trout. Like we're talking about sea trout or?
No, like rainbow trout. That's like my
Rainbow
second
trout.
little passion I got. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
One lure for the rest of your life. Which one would it be? Just one lure.
Nico rig.
Nico rig. Wow, I haven't heard that one. Nico rig.
Little curveball.
I think
I
lot
could throw
of
a
people know
Nico
what the
rig. I could throw a Nico rig anywhere in the country, any time of year, no matter what. If it's the rest of my life, I will catch fish no matter what.
That's an interesting one. Favorite setup. What's your all-time favorite setup? Rod
Like
and
rig.
reel line.
Okay. So I'm sponsored by Cash and Fishing Rods. So I'm gonna go with that. The Icon series Cash and Rod 7'3" worm and jig rod with a Shimano 7.3-1 SLX DC with 17-pound Seagar fluoro and a jig on a just fishing a jig. That's like my favorite setup.
Nice. What was the other one? I almost forgot. Okay. Classic question. 1 10-pounder or 22 pounders? One day of fishing. Which one would you rather have?
I'm from California, so 1 10-pounder.
Yeah. All right. I've heard various on that one. So good job, man.
Yeah.
So Shane, thank you so much for coming on. I want to give you, as always, a few minutes. I give all my guests the time to kind of like thank their sponsors and people that make your bass fishing or kayak bass fishing life a little bit easier. So if you want to go ahead and thank anybody you want to thank, company, sponsors, families, go right ahead.
Yeah. First, I want to just thank my wife for supporting this crazy hobby of mine, and my little son. He kind of just keeps encouraging me to get out there. I love seeing the joy on his face when I show him a picture or when we're both reeling in a fish. And then going from there, I got to thank Kayak Fish Supplies and OEX, Brent Torgeson and Carrie Peeler down there in San Diego. They've kind of believed in me since day one. Brent gave me an opportunity to do social media for them. And it's really just kind of propelled, my foot in the industry. And so a huge shout out to OEX and Kayak Fish Supplies. They're rigging my boat right now. And I can't wait to release that and show everyone what we got cooking over there. And then from there, I got to thank Bonafide Kayaks. Been with them since day one in the industry and on their factory team. And Justin and the team over there just does a great job with us as the team. And I believe in their innovation moving forward. And it's a great platform to fish off of. Along with Motor Guide, part of their pro team. We got a great team with Drew Gregory and Fluke Master and Derek Brundle. It's got some exciting things coming in the future with Motor Guide. I feel like that bow mount really has put a dent in the industry, and it's really made its own kind of footprint as well. And just really stoked to be a part of that team. And then going from there, got a huge shout out to Dakota Lithium, Stormy, also someone that's believed in me, for 3 years now. Been with Dakota, powered, all my power is Dakota Lithium. Great battery to run. And Rogue Fishing, Mark, again, just giving me opportunities. One Objective and Nines Optics. Also Aussie Concept Kayak Folding Trailer. I got their trailer last year. It's actually a trailer that folds up and goes into your garage, and it's a really cool, innovative kayak trailer. So huge shout out to Aussie Concept as well. And also Cash and Fishing Rods, great people. They're a faith-based company, which is important to me, and really excited that I joined the Cash and crew this last year. It's been a huge blessing. So other than that, just shout out to all my listeners for my podcast, and I just thankful and really excited about kicking off the ABA series out here in California and trying to make anything I can nationally as well. So that's pretty much it, man. Other than that, keep your guys' thumbs ripped. And Armando, thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure, man. And again, thank you for coming onto the show. I take pride in bringing people that actually do a great service for the community, and you've definitely done what you can to help the kayak fishing community grow in California. So big thank you to that. Props to you for doing
Thank
that.
you.
And it's always a blessing to have people like you in the kayak fishing community to help it grow organically and take it to the next level. So we can't really overstate what you've done and continue to do. So we wish you the best moving forward with that. Lots of success and whatever we can do to help you and help the kayak fishing community in California grow. We're always here for this. We want this to grow. We want this to get better. We want more people to pay attention to this, and more big name companies, even non-endemic companies that might be interested in sponsoring and bringing more money to the community and the tournaments. It's even better. I also wanted to ask you, where can people follow you on social media?
If you guys got Instagram, Bass Thumbs Fishing on Instagram. Also, I got a YouTube channel at Bass Thumbs Fishing. And my podcast is found on the Paddle and Fin Network. It's just the Bass Thumbs Fishing Podcast. That's it. That's what I got. Perfect. Facebook, I kind of do my own thing on Facebook. I just got my personal Shane LemMon. Don't have Bass Thumbs Fishing really on there. So I mostly do all my stuff on Instagram and YouTube.
Awesome, man. So there we go. Bass Thumbs Fishing. If you want to go check it out. Not Facebook. Instagram, YouTube. TikTok. Are you in TikTok too or no?
No TikTok.
No TikTok.
No
All
TikTok.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
So, Shane, once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. For those out there listening, thank you for joining the show. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember, if you're going to be on the water, if you're going to bring great beers while you're kayak fishing and all that, please stay safe. Take everything in moderation. If you're going to be on the water, please wear your PFDs. And thank you again for listening. Go check out my sponsor, Douglas Rods. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Have a great day, everyone. Tight lines.